Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here. So with this being the month of March, I figured March Madness is the big thing right now with the NCAA tournament taking place every year in the month of March, at least in a normal year. So I thought in this video I would explain why, as someone who loves college basketball and loves March Madness every year, and also kind of hates it a little bit. I just wanted to explain why I love and hate March Madness. Um, the reason I love March Madness, there's a few, but the big one is, as long as you are in the tournament, you have a chance to win. And so you hear about these quote unquote Cinderella stories, which at times I kind of feel like is a little overly used. But in a sense, you have that Cinderella story, including when University of Maryland, Baltimore County, a 16 seed, beat Virginia in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. And that was the first ever instance of a 16 seed beating a 1 seed. And it was just crazy because up to that point, it had never happened. And so every year when I would fill out my brackets for the tournament challenge on ESPN, I always had the 16 losing to the 1 seed because that's just how it goes. But now, ever since then, I have to take into account that particular instance, and now it's only a 99% assurance that the 1 seed is going to beat the 16 seed, which it should have always been, honestly, but because it had never happened before, you just never really expected it to happen. So I love that for those teams that are in the NCAA tournament, it doesn't matter how big your following is, it doesn't matter where you're located or how many fans are able to come to your arena to pack it, like basically the size of the arena or the size of your campus. None of that matters, because when you're in the tournament, you're on the same playing field as your competitor. So as long as you know how to shoot a basketball into the hoop and not turn the ball over, you've got a chance to win. So that's kind of that's what I love about March Madness. And I love how, in a sense, it can bring people together, especially if you root for, one of those lower level teams that doesn't really get talked about much during the regular season because they play in a smaller conference. It can really bring people together to rally behind a team that otherwise you wouldn't have much of an interest in rooting for or whatever. Like, it's just really cool in that sense. I guess the one big thing, like most people, that I hate about March Madness is when you fill out your bracket, and especially if you're in a tournament challenge group where you have to buy in, like you have to put money down, like 5, 10, 20 bucks, whatever, to be able to get in. And so there's money at stake. Like the one year I was at Cerner during March Madness, I was in a group where you had to pay 10 bucks to get into the group. And at one point in time, I was in position to not just be on the podium, I was in position to win the whole thing. And then, like, right towards the end, it just collapsed, and I ended up finishing 4th. Because if you finish on the podium, which is the top 3 positions in the group, you at least got some money. So it was kind of frustrating to go from easily being able to come away with something to not being able to come away with something because March Madness just murdered my bracket in the end. And so, in a sense, the big thing I hate about March Madness is basically once you fill out your bracket and the tournament starts and it's locked in, you're just like, all right, how long is it going to be before my bracket's busted? There's been a couple times where I made it through the first day without my bracket being busted. I think there might be one instance where I might have made it through the second day completely unscathed, and then after that, it just kind of went all awry. but usually it's sometime, if not the first day, it's the second day that my bracket usually gets busted. Um, I don't know, this year, or well, the next time they do March Madness, I don't know when it'll be or whatever, but um, shoot it. For some of those matchups, I might just flip a coin and do best of 7, and whichever one wins 4 times out of 7, that's just going to be my pick. Like, there's no real logic to base the pick on, because anymore, why even use logic? Um, so in a sense, yeah, there's a love-hate relationship with me and March Madness, but another cool thing about March Madness is, like, let's say, so last year I planned on using vacation days for the round of 64 because there's games constantly going on. There's constantly at least 2 or 3 games going on at any given time. And that's the part that I truly, like, those first 2 days of the NCAA tournament, I don't count the first 4 or whatever. Like, for me, the NCAA tournament starts with the round of 64. And those are my 2 favorite days because of all of the games going on. But last year, I planned on using vacation days for those 2 days. And basically, like, a week before the tournament was supposed to start, COVID canceled it. And it was just kind of a bummer because I ended up just sitting at home for 2 days instead of, watching college basketball. But in a normal year, March Madness is really cool, especially on those round of 64 days, because let's say if you want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and grab lunch or dinner during the tournament those 2 days, I mean, let's say if you want to grab lunch on a day off or whatever, like you're taking vacation days, you can go up there for lunch right about 11 when those first games typically tip off. And shoot, if you really wanted to, you could stay until the games go to halftime. You could stay until the end of those first batch of games. I mean, technically, as long as you're still, to me, if you've eaten your food and you're done and you don't get any more after that point, then I kind of feel like you're kind of abusing it. But, let's say if you get, like an appetizer sampler tray or whatever, and you go through it and, or like you're there with a couple of buddies or something and you all smash the platter of appetizers, it's like, yeah, we could order some more food. That I feel like would be okay to keep staying there and partaking in the games. But anyway, so I mostly love March Madness. A little bit of hate thrown in there because that's just how it is. But and it's been really awesome. Like, you see me wearing my North Carolina gear. I actually got introduced to watching North Carolina, well, basketball at first, by a good buddy of mine when we were in middle school. He's always been a Carolina Panthers fan. He's always been a North Carolina Tar Heels fan, amongst all the other teams there. And so I started following Tar Heel basketball at that point. And at the time, one of their best players was a guy named Tyler Hansbrough. So at first I'm like, oh, this is cool. One of their best players is a guy named Tyler. So that's how I latched on at first. It wasn't because of how great the North Carolina Tar Heels program is, especially in basketball. I mean, it helped, but it wasn't the reason I initially started watching. And ever since I've been a Tar Heels fan, I've gotten to see 2 national titles. And it's been really cool to see that. And there was one year where North Carolina lost on a buzzer beater to Villanova, which still kind of bums me to this day. But hey, at the end of the day, I was happy for Villanova that they won the national title that year. So, and they beat the Tar Heels fair and square. So, no hard feelings there. But it'll be a great day when, my first team, the Missouri Tigers, could someday win a basketball national title. It's not going to be for a while because we're not close to relevancy yet, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll get back to when we had Mike Anderson as the head coach, and we were at least in the Sweet 16 pretty much every year. There was one year we made it to the Elite Eight, almost the Final Four. It was 2008, I do believe, when the Final Four was held in Detroit. But, you know, I can't wait for that day, but until then, you know, I'll just keep waiting. So, but thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you found this at least somewhat entertaining or amusing, or at least interesting, especially for those of you that don't really follow sports at all, or especially college basketball. I hope you found this interesting as to why people in general love the NCAA tournament every year, which is always nicknamed March Madness. So, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your support. Take care. God bless.